Welcome to Wawasan Wire. Today, we're talking about Muhyiddin's strategic move to reshape the coalition dynamics.
Yeah, and this is far more than just some routine political chess game. We are, I think, witnessing a fundamental realignment that could absolutely redefine the entire opposition bloc.
Exactly. We need to cut through all the noise and really understand the mechanics of what's happening. And this isn't speculation. This is based on definitive statements from Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin himself.
Right, the chairman of Perikatan Nasional.
And he's confirmed that two hugely significant parties are knocking on the door. First, the Malaysian Indian Congress, a political institution in its own right.
And second, Parti Pejuang Tanah Air.
So if these moves are finalized, it doesn't just shuffle seats around. It radically shifts the balance of power, both structurally and maybe even demographically, heading towards the next election.
Well, what's striking to me is the timing. It's so deliberate. It shows a real calculation by these parties about where they think political relevance and, frankly, longevity now resides.
They're placing a heavy bet on Perikatan Nasional's future.
A very heavy bet.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with what I think is the bigger shockwave. The Malaysian Indian Congress. Muhyiddin has confirmed it, right? He said they've formally submitted their application.
He has. It's official. The application is in hand, which, as you said, puts the ball firmly in Perikatan Nasional's court.
But this is where the procedure gets really important. Muhyiddin was very careful to point out that the decision isn't his alone.
No, absolutely not. It rests entirely with the Perikatan Nasional Supreme Council. And that body is the crucial procedural bottleneck,
A bottleneck? How so?
Well, every existing component party has to agree before they can integrate a major new entity, especially one that's leaving a decades-old alliance. It's about ensuring stability and preventing any internal backlash down the line.
That makes sense. But he also explained why there's a delay. The Supreme Council meeting was actually postponed.
Right, because they were laser-focused on the Sabah state election. He was very explicit about that.
He said detailed discussions with the Malaysian Indian Congress leadership, so that's President Tan Sri Vingoswaran and Secretary General Datuk Ananthan, will only happen after the Sabah polls are done.
And from a political optics standpoint, that's logical. You just can't afford to have a crucial internal coalition debate distracting from a live election campaign.
Any hint of conflict would be weaponized by the other side.
Immediately. So delaying it, while it might seem like they're making them wait, is probably the smarter move to avoid that.
But he did offer a pretty significant assurance, didn't he? He said that, in principle, all the Perikatan Nasional component parties are already welcoming of the move.
That phrase, in principle, is doing a lot of work there.
It is. It's a safety net.
Exactly. It means the emotional and strategic acceptance is there, which is a major hurdle cleared. But the Supreme Council still needs to hammer out the final, the binding agreement.
The nuts and bolts.
The really difficult stuff. Seat allocations, resource sharing, what the obligations are. Until that legal document is signed, it's really just a conditional welcome.
So it's a yes, we want you. But the contract is still being drafted. Now, we have to talk about the seismic shift happening inside the Malaysian Indian Congress that even led to this.
Right, because this didn't just come out of nowhere.
Not at all. It came directly from their 79th annual general meeting. Their deputy president, Datuk Seri Saravanan, tabled 3 motions.
And one of them was the big one.
It was. It explicitly addressed exiting Barisan Nasional to potentially join Perikatan Nasional. And that motion passed. It shows a real groundswell of internal pressure.
But this is where it gets a little more complex, right? The AGM passing the motion doesn't automatically mean they've left Barisan Nasional.
No, exactly. And that's the crucial point of nuance here. The final official authority to rubber stamp that decision. It lies with the Malaysian Indian Congress Central Working Committee.
Think of the CWC as the party's executive board. The membership has shown its preference very clearly, but the CWC has to navigate the legal and financial mess of severing such a long partnership.
A decades-long partnership. That just underlines the historical magnitude of this. Barisan Nasional has been their political home for generations.
Yeah.
So how is the other side, Barisan Nasional, handling this potential loss?
Well, we have a very direct answer from their chairman, Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, and his stance is, frankly, very revealing.
What do you say?
He said it publicly. that if the Malaysian Indian Congress decides to exit, he's prepared to accept that decision with an open mind. And he was emphatic. He said he has no intention of interfering in their internal affairs.
That non-interference stance is what I find so startling. I mean, coalitions, especially Barisan Nasional historically, they operate so tightly.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, and I'd ask you, the listener, too, what do you make of Zahid Hamidi's approach? Does it signal confidence, or is it more like resignation?
I think it signals a profound shift, likely driven by pure pragmatism. Traditionally, you're right, we'd expect immense pressure, maybe even some political maneuvering to keep them in the fold. The fact that the chairman is publicly saying we won't interfere suggests he recognizes two things. First, the democratic mandate from the AGM. And second, that starting a public fight over a departing party, it just risks alienating other voters and allies.
So it's better to let them go quietly.
It's a strategic retreat. You minimize the drama, conserve your political capital, and you focus on the bigger battles ahead.
A quiet political earthquake, then. But while that's unfolding, there is a second major story developing. Muhyiddin also confirmed another application. Let's pivot to Parti Pejuang Tanah Air.
Yes, he confirmed that Pejuang has also recently applied to join Perikatan Nasional. So he's juggling a two-pronged expansion here. You have the established ethnic representation from the Malaysian Indian Congress, and then the political personalities and heft from Pejuang.
Is the approval process the same for them?
Absolutely identical. And that consistency is paramount for internal credibility. Pejuang's bid will be discussed and approved by the exact same authority, the Perikatan National Supreme Council.
No special treatment.
None. It ensures carity. It also forces Pejuang to negotiate their terms, their seat expectations, with all the existing parties at the table.
It's clear Muhyiddin is very engaged in this. And it's worth noting the backdrop here. He made these huge announcements right after attending the convention for Euromay.
And that's not a coincidence. Attending the Euromay convention and then immediately announcing these two applications, it's a strategic message.
What's the message?
He's positioning Perikatan Nasional not just as an opposition bloc, but as a broad national umbrella, one that can accommodate a diverse spectrum of political entities, from established parties to civil rights groups. It's about looking nationally representative.
That image of a broad umbrella, that leads us to the bigger question. What do these two applications really mean for Perikatan Nasional's long-term strategy?
I think it means strategic consolidation. It's a direct play for future electoral success. For Perikatan Nasional, this is how they broaden their appeal and challenge the narrative that they only represent a narrow demographic.
So bringing in the Malaysian Indian Congress helps with ethnic representation.
Immediately. And bringing in Parti Pejuang Tanah Air adds political veterans with serious organizing power and experience. It's a move for depth, breadth, and influence on the ground.
And if both parties do successfully join, it fundamentally changes the opposition bloc. It strengthens Perikatan Nasional's position immensely. But it also raises some critical questions about seat negotiations, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
If you're an incumbent party in Perikatan Nasional, you're now looking at two new, hungry parties demanding a slice of the electoral pie.
That's the internal friction they absolutely have to manage. But the external implication is just as vital. A stronger, more consolidated opposition means a more volatile political environment overall.
And volatility always touches the economy. We can't really ignore the economic angle here.
No, you can't.
While the immediate focus is on political power and survival, this kind of uncertainty, especially the fracturing of historic alliances, it always impacts the economy.
Absolutely. Structural shifts of this size are watched very, very closely by market observers, both domestic and international. When a decades-old alliance like Barisan Nasional starts to fracture, it signals long-term instability.
And that affects investor confidence.
Directly. While the politicians are doing their coalition math, the markets are looking at how this will impact policy continuity, governance, and, of course, the trajectory of the ringgit.
So these internal discussions in the Perikatan Nasional Supreme Council actually cast a shadow over the Malaysian economy.
It creates a risk premium. Investors start asking, if the political framework is constantly being redrawn, how reliable are long-term contracts? How stable is the regulatory environment? That uncertainty is a cost, whether it shows up as a dip in the ringgit or a delayed investment.
It's all connected. So to summarize where we are now, we have two huge decisions pending before the Perikatan Nasional Supreme Council. First, the fate of the Malaysian Indian Congress.
And second, the fate of Parti Pejuang Tanah Air.
The outcome of these discussions will really dictate the next chapter in our coalition politics.
And The very willingness of a party like the Malaysian Indian Congress to break such a long-standing alliance, it suggests a really deep lack of faith in the status quo of their former partners. They aren't just looking for better terms, they're looking for a whole new political identity.
And that forces us to consider a pretty profound question for you, the listener. If one of the longest, most stable partnerships in Malaysian history can be openly dissolved like this, what other political relationships, the ones we've always thought were immovable, might fracture next?
It suggests that all alliances, no matter how historic, are now conditional. Conditional on the perception of future power. A truly transformative moment.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.